Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. We begin with Iraq, where the head of Iran's elite Quds force, Major General Qasem Soleimani, has been killed in a US airstrike on Baghdad's international airport. The pre-dawn raid killed 8 people, including Iraqi militia commander Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. General Soleimani and other officials were leaving Baghdad airport in 2 cars when they were hit by missiles. In a statement, the Pentagon said the attack was ordered by President Donald Trump. It said the raid was aimed at deterring future attacks allegedly being planned by Tehran. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has warned the US of a hard retaliation. Foreign Minister Javad Zarif called the act as an act of terrorism, saying the US bears the responsibility for the consequences. Moving on to North Korea, which says any attempt to infringe on Pyongyang's survival will be met with an immediate and powerful strike. State media said North Korea is now engaging in all-out effort to build up its national defense capability. Earlier, U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper called on Kim to exercise restraint. He said the best path forward is still a political agreement on denuclearizing North Korea. Esper said resumption of large-scale military exercises with South Korea remains an option. South Korea's main opposition, the Liberty Korea Party, said its senior officials will visit the US next week to discuss tensions. US President Donald Trump has warned Turkey against any foreign interference in Libya. This comes after the Turkish parliament approved the deployment of troops to support Tripoli's government of national accord. In a telephone conversation with President Tayyip Erdogan, Trump said interference in Libya will complicate the situation. In a joint statement, Greece and Cyprus condemned Ankar's decision, saying it poses a serious threat to stability in the region. The Arab League also rejected Turkey's growing involvement in Libya. Egypt called the decision a blatant violation of international law and the UN Security Council resolutions. Earlier, Turkey's parliament approved a bill to send troops to Libya in support of the UN-recognized government. The motion was passed by 325 votes to 185. The UN Security Council will meet behind closed doors today to discuss an increase in violence in Syria's Idlib. The meeting comes at the request of Britain and France, supported by the US. In a telephone call, US President Donald Trump and Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan agreed on the need for the de-escalation. On Thursday, UNICEF Executive Director Henrietta Fore called for an immediate cessation of hostilities in northwest Syria. Diplomats say they hope the session will discuss the reauthorization of cross-border UN aid. Humanitarian aid currently flows into Syria through the UN-designated checkpoints in Turkey and Iraq. The arrangement is timed to end on January the 10th. President López Obrador says he will not be changing his government's decision to give asylum to people in the Mexican embassy in Bolivia. Speaking in Mexico City, Obrador said handing over people would mean abandoning the right to grant asylum. Mexico's embassy has given refuge to 9 individuals Bolivia describes as criminals it wants to put on trial. The move has stoked diplomatic tension between both the countries. The United States has sanctioned Cuba's Revolutionary Armed Forces Minister Leopoldo Sintra Frias. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo accused Sintra of human rights violations and cited his support of Venezuela's president. Pompeo said Sintra's ministry is responsible for Cuba propping up Nicolas Maduro's regime in Venezuela. Washington's top diplomat said the ministry was guilty of torturing Cubans for their anti-Maduro ideas. The sanctions also prevent Sintra's children from entering the U.S. Sintra is a career military officer who joined Fidel Castro's rebel army in 1957. A Brussels court has suspended the extradition of former Catalan pro-independence leader Carles Puigdemont. The leader, with fellow politician Toni Comín, is wanted in Spain on charges of sedition for a failed independence bid in 2017. The court ruled in favor of Puigdemont and Comín, highlighting their immunity as members of the European Parliament. Spain's interim Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has been backed by Catalonia's largest separatist party to form a coalition government. MPs from the party will abstain in a confidence vote next week, paving the way for a new term for Sánchez. In return, the Sánchez-led Socialist Party has agreed to negotiate the future of Catalonia. 18 people have died after a Sudanese military transport plane crashed in the state of West Darfur. Army spokesperson Amir Mohammed Al-Hassan said the aircraft crashed 5 minutes after takeoff from an airport in the state capital of Al-Janana. The spokesperson said the victims include 7 crew members, 3 judges and 8 others, 4 of them children. Al-Hassan said the plane was in Al-Janana to deliver aid to an area hit by recent deadly tribal fighting. He said there is an investigation to determine the cause of the crash. Al-Janana has seen several tribal violence in recent weeks, which has claimed 48 lives. The death toll from the flooding has risen to 43 after torrential rains caused landslides in the Indonesian capital, Jakarta. Disaster management officials warn the death toll may rise. Officials said 30,000 people have been forced from their homes by rivers flooding at least 90 neighborhoods. The city's main airport has suspended operations. The authorities have decided to attempt cloud speeding in a bid to prevent further rainfall. The Kenyan army claims it has killed 4 Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab fighters in Lamu County, close to the Somali border. The move is a response to an Al-Shabaab attack on a bus traveling from Mombasa that left 3 people dead and dozens wounded. In a statement, the Kenyan military said it captured 1 fighter alive. Lamu County in Kenya has seen a spate of attacks by Somalia-based militants because of its close proximity to the border. Australians are bracing themselves for worsening conditions with raging bushfires forcing widespread evacuations of people. The Navy has begun picking up thousands of people stranded on the country's east coast. The Bureau of Meteorology has warned of the danger becoming extreme, with strong winds and temperatures hitting 40 degrees Celsius. At the peak of the summer holiday period, tens of thousands of tourists are leaving the country. Victoria has declared a state of disaster for the first time in its history, while a state of emergency has been announced in New South Wales. At least 20 people have died so far and 28 remain missing. Communication and transport infrastructure has been paralyzed in Victoria, hampering the evacuations. Meanwhile, Australian tennis star Nick Kyrgios has stood up to help victims of his country's raging bushfires. He will donate $140 for each ace he hits at events held in January. Kyrgios called on Tennis Australia to host a fundraising exhibition. Fellow Australian tennis players Alex de Minaur and John Millman will donate money for every ace they hit as well. Australia's cricketers are planning tributes and fundraising. The country's 5 fighters were honoured by 1-minute applause at Australia-New Zealand cricket match. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The United Nations Security Council has appointed 5 non-permanent members for the next 2-year term. Estonia, Niger, St. Vincent, Tunisia and Vietnam have now taken up their roles in the Council. Of the 5 newly elected members, Estonia and St. Vincent have never served on the Security Council. Kuwait, Peru, Poland, Cote d'Ivoire and Equatorial Guinea have just left. The 15-member council has 5 permanent members: Britain, China, France, Russia and the US. Security Council powers include setting up peacekeeping operations and international sanctions. It is the only UN body with the authority to issue binding resolutions to the member states. In Mali, no train has left Bamako's colonial-era railway station for over 18 months. For almost 100 years, the service connected Mali to neighboring Senegal. This report tells how railway workers are trying to preserve the station and its memories.
For several months now, no train has passed through this colonial-era station in Bamako. For almost 100 years, the Dakar-Bamako Express had connected Mali's capital to neighbouring Senegal. But since May 2018, the station's green carriages have remained stationary.
On a day like today, a Monday, Train 12 departed. It was euphoric. People were crying here, and it was a reunion. Today it is something that we miss very much. You see how the station is dilapidated today. It has become a dump. The tills no longer work. Everyone's at a standstill because there are no trains.
Since the line was closed, some 430 rail workers are out of work. An ex-railway worker, Moussa Traoré, is working on a 4-ton collection of documents which tell the history of the Bamako to Dakar line.
The archives really fall within the framework of the preservation of the nation's memory, the memory also really of the railway. Within the railway, there is the exploitation side of history, but also the economic side, the historical, and there is also the cultural side.
A rail rehabilitation plan is being discussed with several partners, including the World Bank. At the end of 2018, Senegal and Mali each promised to contribute €15 million as a boost. But according to the trade unionists, the money has still not yet been paid. For several
Those are the highs of the business world now. Abu Dhabi's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan announced $200 million to support economic projects in Pakistan. The Crown Prince was on a day-long visit to Pakistan where he met with Prime Minister Imran Khan. In a statement, the Prime Minister office said both the leaders discussed bilateral and regional issues. Khan apprised the Crown Prince of India's lockdown in Indian-occupied Kashmir. The Prime Minister also briefed him about Pakistan's efforts for peace in Afghanistan. The Crown Prince appreciated Pakistan's important role in the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Greece, Israel and Cyprus have signed a pipeline transit deal to supply natural gas to Europe. The supply accounts for 10% of the European Union's total annual gas needs. The project has a budget of over $6.5 billion and will stretch over 2,000 kilometers. The East Mediterranean pipeline will run from Israel's Levantine Basin offshore gas reserves to Cyprus, Crete and the Greek mainland. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said the agreement sealed the resolve for a strategic connection between the countries. Asian stock markets are trading lower as investors weigh the impact of an escalation in Middle East tensions. Tokyo's Nikkei 225 is trading 0.75% lower. Hong Kong's Hang Seng has lost a fraction as shares in HSBC declined 0.75%. The Shanghai Composite is also trading fractionally lower, shedding its early gains. Seoul's Kospi Index is trading marginally lower, despite shares of chipmaker SK Hynix rising over 0.5%. International oil prices have surged 3.5% after an Iranian military commander was killed in a US airstrike. Another weather situation from around the world. That's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.